Thank you to everyone online for joining us live from your place to ours. Plant protein, the new age of food. Today's 3 sessions are keeping products on the shelves, consumer adoption, and finally, financing and investing. For our first session, keeping products on the shelves with a little bit of marketing, is presented by the Canadian Securities Exchange. We are pleased to have 3 companies and 1 extra special guest moderator and sponsor. Jessica Malach, VP, Partnerships and Insights from Social Nature. Goel, CEO and founder of Fresh City Farms. Michael Owen, Investment Committee Member, Eat Beyond Global Holdings, Inc. And of course, Nicole Marchand, CEO and founder, SnowCap Ventures. This completes today's lineup. Our objective in running this plant protein series is threefold. First, for companies to gain visibility and traction on an accessible platform. The second is to inform capital market players and investors about these types of companies in this space, while also providing new knowledge of what is happening in the plant area. Thirdly, this is to bring it home. From the opening session of the science behind the protein to the individual company presentations, you as an investor or as a casual passerby will hopefully have gathered enough information to see the culmination in this week's finale. For you as the attendees, we do ask that you share your ideas and feedback with our presenters, maybe some leads, possible funding, after due diligence, referral of someone with unique applicable expertise, or maybe even a potential strategic partnership. You can find their contact information in the profile box. And also, with respect, we might refrain from giving management advice unless we are truly experts in the company's particular field. And please do not treat our companies and or individuals as marketing targets for services. Some housekeeping matters. If images aren't clear or pictures are incomplete, check your bandwidth, refresh your screen, call IT. We do have a disclaimer. This presentation is for information only and not a solicitation to make investment in either shares or debt or buy and sell stock. CSE and myself make no representation about these companies. There are no formal presentations this week. It is a panel. It is a fireside. And I am going to introduce the person who's walking us through this chat, Nicole Marchand. She was previously the CEO and co-founder of Grit Capital, which grew to be one of the top capital market advisory firms in Canada. During her time as CEO of Grit, the firm disrupted traditional finance by combining finance and entertainment into Fin Entertainment, growing followers to over 150,000, hosting out of a box events and conferences and high-impact investor roadshows. Prior, she held roles in the institutional sales, investment banking, and over 8 years' experience in investor relations. And she is also a sponsor of this week's series finale. I turn it over to you, Nicole. Good luck.
Thank you, Barrington, and thank you to everyone joining us today. So we're going to be discussing marketing and keeping products on the shelf in the plant-based space. To start off, if we could have all of our panelists go around, introduce themselves, and if you could also let the audience know your favorite plant-based food. I'll kick it off with having to say my favorite plant-based food right now would be the Impossible burgers and Impossible meat.
Hi, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you too.
All right. So I'm Jessica Malach, and I'm with Social Nature. And Social Nature's company mission is to help shoppers make the switch to better for you products. And so we do this by providing people with education, by giving consumers the opportunity to try products and then to share their voice with the marketplace on what kind of products they want to see on shelves. And then we help natural brands in the US and Canada move products off shelves through driving targeted trial at retailers across both the US and Canada. I've been in national product marketing since 2004, working with a variety of high growth companies. And I love providing, input into ways brands can grow. My favorite plant-based food is a vegan kale Caesar salad at my local vegan restaurant called Eternal Abundance. It's my go-to meal. I cannot stop eating it, and I absolutely love it. Thanks for having me, everybody.
Great, thank you. Rand?
Thanks, Nicole, and thank you, Barrington and the CSE, for facilitating this. My name is Ran. I run a company, and I founded a company called Fresh City. We just wrapped up our 10th growing season right here in Toronto. We're an urban farm, but we're also a B2C omni-channel grocery brand. We deliver several thousand orders a week in the GTA, as well as run 8 small format stores with a big focus on prepared foods that are naturally, organically sourced. My favorite plant-based food these days is Fresh City's Kung Pao tofu jar, which is has a nice bit of kick to it, and just plays a great role in, for lunch or dinner.
Michael? And just have to unmute yourself at the bottom.
Yeah, I did. Good afternoon, Michael Owen. I'm an investment committee member with Eat Beyond Global Holdings, and basically kind of in a semi-retirement mode, but I'm involved with a lot of companies in the organic food space and the plant-based protein space. I come from a background of a lot of years in the traditional consumer packaged goods business, both in marketing and sales roles, and highlights of that would have been being the chief marketing officer of Uncle Ben's in the United States. And then I was a partner and senior board member of Advantage Sales and Marketing, which is one of the major sales agencies and marketing agencies that are involved with clients putting products on the shelf and representing them, which I did until 2015.
Great, thank you.
Well, my favorite food, it would be the butter cheese shreds, and I love them because they melt like real cheese. And I think one of the other key things is that they're priced like real cheese.
Ah, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start out by asking some questions directly at our panelists. But other panelists, feel free to step in if you have anything to add when the other panelist is finished their answer. So Jessica, how has the plant-based consumer evolved over the past 2 years?
Yeah, the way I would just, what we are noticing at Social Nature, and we've got a community of 500,000 natural shoppers, so we're in touch with consumer mindset and patterns on a daily basis. What we've noticed is that it's evolving from being more of a dietary preference that's 100% vegan or 100% vegetarian, and moving more into a health-driven type of goal. So whereas before a lot of people might have been motivated around plant-based foods for animal welfare concerns, for environmental concerns, and certainly nutritional as well, what we're noticing now is that it's becoming a little bit more of a health conversation. And so that's kind of where I think the future of plant-based foods is going, is around helping mainstream consumers to support enhancing their health.
Yeah. Interesting fact that I read was that in Europe, the main driver for plant-based growth is the environment. And as you said, in North America, Jessica, it is health. Mm-hmm. What is important to the consumer when picking out plant-based options, Jessica?
So I think a couple things are important. Number one, ingredient story is critical. So if we think about the halo around plant-based, it's a halo of health. So people are reading labels now. They're more proactive than ever before when it comes to health. And a lot of this is driven by COVID. In fact, 85% more consumers are taking more proactive health measures. So it's really important that the label is clean, that we are looking for ways to reduce sodium, that we're looking ways to reduce sugar, that we are focused on organic and non-GMO as much as possible. And those are some of the key things. The other piece is the story behind the company. People are more interested nowadays than ever before, which is who are the people behind these brands and what is their sourcing of ingredients, and supply chain transparency is becoming even more of an interesting area for consumers.
Great, thank you. Ran, one of the knocks on plant-based products is that they're often more expensive than their animal counterparts. You're seeing companies like Beyond and Impossible have been dropping their prices. Do you see price as a major issue for adoption?
Yeah, I mean, price is definitely a key consideration. So I could speak as a retailer that focuses on organic, and there's obviously a premium associated with it. It's certainly a big issue. So you can't discount that. At the same time, I think, my mind, there's two crucial things that we need to solve. I mean, one is product placement. I think we have to think through and find retailers willing to take risks and willing to be innovative in how the product is merchandised, meaning is it in the freezer, is it in the refrigerated section, is there a butcher kind of counter for these products? I think that's a big question, and I think the retailers, grocers have to play a key role in that in terms of willing to take some risks and trying things out. That's the one part of it. And I think the other part of it, which is much softer, but I think probably even more important than the other two, the pricing or placement, is creating ritual around plant-based proteins. And if you think of the rituals of Thanksgiving or Christmas around turkeys, or the ritual of having a barbecue, I think to me that's a critical thing, is this myth building and ritual building around it. In the same way that we've done for guacamole, for football or basketball games. There needs to be that kind of myth making around it, I think, for it to be accepted and as something that you enjoy. You can invite somebody over for a plant-based protein meal.
Yeah. I think the Very Good Butcher has done a great job of that. They always have holiday specials, and they are really pushing more rituals around plant-based dining. So, Michael, how important is a company's vision and mission to the sell-through of their product?
Normally, I guess you would say that there's not a close linkage between those things. However, if you want to step back and look at it, I guess the strength and relevance of a company's mission and vision obviously is very important to their long-term success. And I would say a couple of things. I think in terms of a mission, it's a methodology as well to communicate and engage with external stakeholders, whether that be the trade or the consumer. And that filters down in terms of the brand propositions that company is developing. And those are obviously key drivers of offtake. I think the other thing in terms of vision, and something that we found in accelerating some of our investment portfolio companies, is that you've got to know where you're going in terms of defining success and plan that way. And it might impact on things like envisioning the scale and the throughput that you're trying to achieve in terms of where you're going, and then shooting forward to that level in terms of where you price your products, given that price is so important. You may not be able to make your 40 or 45 margins, on a startup where you're being inefficient on both purchasing and production. But if you have a vision of where you're going to and what you think that potential is for your company, you can cost out things as they might be in the future, and then hit closer to being priced at those levels, so that you're again pricing for success and getting that volume to achieve your mission.
All right, so now we're going to discuss the way consumers are shopping. Rand, COVID disrupted the way consumers shop in many ways. How did this impact your business, and what behaviors do you think are here to stay?
So just for everyone's information, Fresh City was born as an online business, and we were online only for our first 7 years. And it's still the biggest part of our business. So as you can imagine, we saw a huge burst in demand for online deliveries, but our stores definitely more than held their own during COVID. I think that the big question and the big thing that I like to kind of move beyond is this kind of dichotomy between, are people going to be online? Are they going to be in store? I think the way to think of this is the way we think of the reinvention of the grocery store over the last century. Moving from consolidating the butcher and baker under one roof, and then moving to bigger formats, moving to the big Costco warehouse format. And I think that's the lens to look at this through. It's not a question of either or. It's a question of how much the penetration is going to be. Our bet certainly is that fresh food is going to move online in a much bigger way going forward. Certainly, I think the gains we've made so far as an online company, I think, are going to stay. But there just is, all the stars have aligned, and COVID's obviously accelerated it, this shift to online. And the question is no longer, I think, do you go online? It's just, how do you go online? And making sure the kind of analog and digital channels are synergistic as opposed to cannibalizing each other.
That's great. Jessica, how has COVID impacted consumer behavior and patterns?
Yeah, great question. And all of us are consumers, so I'm sure all of us have noticed our own behavioral changes. And I think, as Ron was mentioning, there definitely have been shifts in channel. So what we found was Social Nature's research, and I just pulled this data actually last week, is that over the last sort of 8 months, and as of up until now, people have been going to stores about 2.5 times per week before COVID, and now it's starting to stabilize around once per week. And the spend per shop is higher. So it's not that people are not going to brick and mortar, they are, but not as often. So I think it's really important for brands to understand that driving in-store discovery is going to require more effort, yet there is a good opportunity for return there to be in these baskets. And the other thing is that the online shopping has definitely grown. What we've seen actually the last 6 months based on consumer feedback is in the US, D2C shopping has increased by 58%, and in Canada by 36%. And this is just in 6 months. So what might that look in the future? And I think it will be, as Ron has mentioned, it's going to be an omni-channel feature, and it's also going to have more of a health ethos than ever before. So people are reading labels more than ever pre-COVID up until now. They're making more decisions for new health routines. In fact, in the last 30 days, 79% of consumers have bought a new product. And what's so exciting about this is that it wasn't because it was on sale. It was actually because either A, they want something new, right? People have been at home more. We're looking for ways to have some new recipes or new ingredients to cook with, or it's been from a net new health routine. Diet. So COVID is impacting health behaviors, and plant-based foods are part of the solution for health. And I think it's a very, very exciting time for the industry. The other point I'll make, which is going to be short, but very also interesting, is that health is being defined more holistically now. So it's not just about eating better and exercising more, it's about mental and emotional health. So people are much more interested in ways to improve and to have a sense of balance in their life. And so brands that can support this and build products that can help with this are also in a growth opportunity, specifically brands that are addressing this, as well as immunity. So Ritual Superfoods, I think, was on last week talking about this. And it's companies that are addressing these holistic needs that I think are going to be poised for growth. We're doing a webinar on this on March 9th, so I can tell you more. I don't want to dominate the conversation. I'm very excited about the health consciousness that's happening.
Well, I love it. Have you tried any new products in the last 30 days?
Let me see. What have I tried? Primal Kitchen. Their arrabbiata sauce is wonderful. I hardly ever cook pasta. I'm like, okay. Actually, the other theme with consumers is comfort and convenience. So I said, okay, let me try to have some pasta, and I absolutely love it. Primal Kitchen's got some great products.
Delicious.
Yeah.
So with consumers, with the pandemic, consumers clearly are not going into the stores as much as they used to. You just pointed that out. So things like taste testing are no longer valid. So how can brands access consumers without doing kind of the traditional marketing tactics?
Yeah, so I think the big idea here, and the big trend, and the big sort of disruption, if you want to use that word right now, as a result of COVID, is the fact that the old days of silo-based marketing are over. So back in the old days, right, you'd have a shopper marketing team, you might have a consumer marketing team, and maybe a brand and digital team, and you'll be running different tactics in tandem, but kind of separately. So I think what's happening now, the leading brands are actually integrating these strategies and these teams. And so there's an opportunity for greater efficiencies to leverage, for example, digital marketing to drive in-store results. That's one of the things that we do at Social Nature, where we'll help brands figure out, who is their ideal consumer, drive demand online, and then mobilize thousands of people to go into stores and pick up a free product. So they're actually having shopping experiences, and brands can do this on their own. It's totally up to you how you want to focus, right? And once they get the product, what's cool about that is they know where you are in the set. You can get feedback on, is this where you expected to find the product, which you can actually leverage for buyer meetings, and then getting feedback and product reviews that can then be used to syndicate e-commerce channels. So I think the short answer is leveraging digital to drive in-store results, and then bringing those results back online again. So that's kind of one area that one way that brands can do that.
That's great. Thank you. So as Jessica mentioned, Michael, direct to consumer has just exploded with COVID. How does that change marketing tactics for brands to access the consumer directly?
Well, I think that certainly it is critical, and as has been pointed out, that's really what marketing is. If you're not having an online presence, you don't have a marketing program. And we've seen COVID induced to a certain extent, but the trends were there anyway. Costco is now just opening up their online service for food, both refrigerated as well as ambient food. They've got 13 million unique visitors a day on their site, which they're trying to monetize, and their model is very strong in terms of value. Shoppers Drug Mart is now just launching very shortly their online presence. So it's definitely the way to go, and an important, very, very important place to be. What we found in helping some of the companies and looking at the difference between bricks and mortar and online as well is that it gives you the opportunity to shoot ahead of the duck in terms of your product range. There's the opportunity to have a much broader range online and expose products that may not be ready for bricks and mortar yet, and to get them working and ready for the next phase. So you may have your lead products in the bricks and mortar situation, and online then becomes the way to build your portfolio over time. And you can see it by basically auditing the stores versus the online comparisons. And if you look at, say, a Sobeys Viola, I'm saying that wrong, but it's probably 3 times as many SKUs available in the plant-based in some categories versus what they have online. So very critical.
Thank you. Ran, in a digital world, consumers are now expecting to have products when they want on demand. How has this changed, and where do you see it in the future? And last question is, have you looked into using drones to enhance your delivery as well?
Great questions. Let me say first, I think what COVID has brought about, which we would certainly welcome, us kind of online grocer veterans, is this idea that there has to be a fee associated with delivery of grocery. And I think for many years, we lived in the shadow of Amazon that did free delivery for all of its shelf-stable products, for lack of a better word. But the reality of it is, for a fresh product, with the 3 temperature zones, you just can't effectively do that without charging a fee. Whether that means it's a Prime-like subscription, so we have something called the Seasons Pass, where you pay $80 a year for free delivery, or whether it's a fee on every delivery. But I think the customer is now used to that, and that's what one thing that's great about I think COVID is it's forced that reality on the market. In terms of I see the market as basically divided up into 2. I think if you look at it 5 years from now, the vast majority of grocery delivery is going to happen either same day or next day. I don't think the Instacart on-demand model is going to be something that is a worthwhile trade-off for most customers in terms of out of stocks that you get because of they're picking from a store, and B, just the extra costs associated with that. So to give you a sense, typical Instacart order, 1, 2, or 3 orders go out from the store at best. In our case, a van leaves the warehouse with 60 orders, which is better for the planet, by the way, as well, from a climate change perspective, and also more consistent product availability for the customer. Drones, I would bet you a Kung Pao tofu jar that we're not going to see drones delivering in urban settings for at least 20 to 30 years. I think there's just too many obstacles, regulatory, legal obstacles to that. You'll see them in, I think, more rural contexts where there isn't as much a risk. Autonomous vehicles, different question. I do think we'll see that within the next 5 or 10 years being deployed in a more mainstream way. So that's what we'd be looking for. No existing plans to move forward on that until there's a technology that comes out. But on the autonomous side, I think we'll definitely see something.
Very exciting. Michael, what advice do you have for plant-based products trying to get listings at the larger grocers?
Yeah, the first thing I think is very important in terms of the sales skills and the bench strength within these firms. It's important to have a sales leader who understands that space and understands the traditional retailer environment. I think that it's very important to connect the consumer proposition to a strong trade proposition. And you need to understand the category, to have done the homework competitively, and you've got to be able to link whatever it is your consumer hook is to what it does for your customer in terms of either incremental sales or incremental margin, and be able to basically present that story in an effective way with the the right data and supports to back it up. And that's the starting point.
Rand, what are some differentiators you notice that separate successful products that you carry from unsuccessful products?
On our end, I'll say, I mean, first of all, we have a very specific customer. Our customers are already predisposed to buying organic, healthy, plant-based. So I'll start with that. I think packaging makes a big difference. I know it sounds kind of boring and obvious, but it's the kind of good food 1.0 or plant food 1.0 versus what you're seeing today makes a big difference. So, for example, our oat milk supplier, which I won't plug here, but I'll just say they've done a whole repackaging over the last year, and we've seen that SKU kind of go from being the second or third most purchased dairy item to it being the most. So we see now more oat milk being bought, for example, than regular milk being bought amongst our customer base. So I think packaging is important, and go back to Jessica's point, authenticity. I think that is a big thing that we're seeing. People are searching for it. The social media just creates such an opportunity to tell a story, and people are actually starting to expect a story, and are frankly becoming more sophisticated, being able to call BS on just completely whitewashed, corporate type stories. I think certainly for our customer base, that's really important.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of those things. So now a question for everyone. First it was the milk space that was disrupted in plant-based foods. Then it was meat. What do you think is the next big category to get mass consumer adoption? Jessica, do you want to start off the group?
Sure. Maybe I'll say two if I can.
Yeah, good. Go for it.
Well, I think that cheese substitutes are already gaining traction, and that appeals to a really broad audience. There's a huge percentage of people that are lactose intolerant, and then there's also people that are wanting to have more plant-based foods. So I think that's a big opportunity. And then the other area is vegan desserts are starting to have a lot more innovation and adoption. So I think those two categories will definitely be growing.
Rand, where do you see?
I mean, I'm no prophet. I can tell you where we've made our bets ultimately.
Yeah.
I think the one is cheese, which we're not involved in directly, but I think to Jessica's point, I think that's an area where you're going to see, I think, a lot of movement there as you get the right mouthfeel and you get the right price point, especially for when they use cheese in pizzas and other, not necessarily for a wine and cheese kind of pairing, but a lot of other contexts. I think there'll be a lot of inroads made there. And the second one is in the the home meal replacement prepared food segment. I think certainly in the grocery side, that's under-indexed in a big way. If you look at frozen meals, I think that's under-indexed in a big way in terms of having vegan representation. So that's where the two areas that I have the most kind of confidence we'll see big growth rates.
Michael?
Would add on to those, and we have some very good portfolio companies that are engaged in things like desserts and cheese, and very exciting. I would add on to that I think that in the protein or the meat space, I guess we've seen a bigger focus on beef, and I think we're going to see chicken and more focus on chicken and other substitutes. And then the last one I think, which is also a portfolio company of ours, would be in the egg area. And that's just getting ready to take off. And I thought Rand's point in terms of cheese and things like pizza is very good. We're seeing more and more food service application in terms of alternative plant-based type pizzas and that kind of thing, utilizing cheese that has good melt properties to create a differentiated offering from their side. So those are some of the things that I see.
Yeah, they say cheese is the hardest thing for most plant-based eaters to give up. So it's great to see all these innovative new cheese products on the market. Michael, this is a question for you. So we've been talking a lot about authenticity and, you know, having a founder story that consumers are really looking for. A lot of the large CPG companies are now going out and creating their own plant-based brands. Do you think these are going to be able to compete with the more authentic brands out there?
I think that ultimately, if they can get their propositions right and offer something new and offer breakthroughs, you know, to enhance the penetration for plant-based protein products, I think they are going to be factors to be, you know, certainly keeping an eye on, and that could have big success. And I think, you know, a lot of the as well as the economics probably being the biggest one, and bringing those costs down. And they do have the benefit of logistics networks and you know, truckloads and delivery to customers in a very efficient manner. And those are all costs to the system that'll impact that final consumer price point. I'd like to think that they would be further behind, and that the smaller companies will win, and some of them will. But you can't discount the strength in some of the multinationals, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Jessica, you deal with a lot of emerging brands in this space. What are some traits that separate the winners from the failures?
I think the first thing is the mindset of the founder. I think it's really important that you are committed to building a brand and willing to raise money and invest in marketing and go all in. If it's sort of a toe in the water type thing, it's just not going to work anymore. I think that the days of, you know, putting a product on a shelf and hoping that it's going to move off because it's got like a plant-based attribute or a unique attribute are kind of over. So the culture is really important. And I think, like, even looking back a little bit, looking at Vega's success story, I met Charles Chang in 2004. I worked with the team a few years after that. And from day one, the company always went into brand building and marketing with strong conviction. And you can see that the exit there was quite successful. I think the other piece is back to, I think both Michael and Ron said the same, is that digital, strong packaging design, clean ingredients are really, really important. And having a good overall kind of brand purpose. And then the final thing would be understanding what scale actually means and what are the resources and inputs needed to scale. So sometimes what can happen is you get traction quick. Maybe you start a natural specialty and you go hard after the Walmarts and the Publix and the Krogers, and you don't fully understand, or maybe haven't had counsel around you to understand like what the listing fees are going to be. You get a PO and all of a sudden you have no working cap to fund these orders. So it's really important that you have a strong finance strategy and mentors around you that can support you to understand what's needed to scale well. And I believe that I think UNFI has some good incubator programs in the US and Canada that support emerging brands to do that. So the three things would be brand building culture, backing up with a real product, a good product, and finally understanding scale, how to do it properly.
Great. You work with, Jessica, you work with a lot of Canadian brands that are looking to enter the US. What advice do you have when a company comes to you and says they want to launch into the US?
Yes, the US is a really big market and it's a ton of opportunity and it's very, very exciting. And it's also very, very competitive. So what I would say is that it's really important to maybe work with a strong broker in the beginning and start at either a regional strategy or maybe start a natural specialty first, like go and win at Whole Foods and Sprouts, and then start to scale into conventional would be a good opportunity. And the second thing that I would say about that is once you figure that out, is sooner than later is get US talent. I think Michael made the point earlier that you really need to have sales leadership that understands like the dynamics of what it is, what's required to be successful at the different retailers and the different marketing programs and things like that. So I would start small and then scale up. Is I think the biggest advice and what I've seen successful with other companies.
Okay, great. And so the next question is for Jessica and Michael. How do you measure the return on investment of marketing? Is it just revenue, or are there other metrics that we should be focusing on?
That's one of the million-dollar questions for sure in terms of the whole marketing profession. And I think that you really do need to measure it based on return of sales, but it can be very difficult to connect discreetly cause and effect. But I think in today's world of a lot more direct to consumer retailing and social media, that there's a much better ability to measure that, and I'm probably not an expert in that area. So Jessica's probably the right one to take over from there.
Let me do my best. It's the age-old question, and quite frankly, I was on a call a couple of weeks ago with a major CPG company and their insights team, and I challenged them like, so you have all the resources in the world, how do you measure ROI? Like what exactly do you guys do? I'd love to hear from you. And they actually couldn't answer it. So there's no silver bullet for this. What I would say is a couple things. Number one, depending on the objective, be clear in what is the objective of whether it's a business strategy, a product launch, like what are you looking to achieve? How are you going to measure it? And then put some type of assumptions around that and work back from there so that you can even have the right amount of investment to generate a return, number one. So engineering a bit of a business plan around these things, I think, is really important. And then the second thing would be, I think, like a lot of people can get hung up on trying to measure every single thing. And I think what's more important is to understand that when we're talking about brand building, market penetration, and driving real value and loyalty for consumers, that an overarching integrated, I'm going to use a bunch of buzzwords now, but hang with me, integrated, right, omni-channel, multi-touch point strategy gets a bigger overall return. So what do you need to do? What I would do, and what we do is invest in a region and look for overall lift in that region, or look for overall lift in that key banner post-promotional period, and start to see that, because I think that's going to help you to better understand, is this mix that I made up working or not? And then the final point for those that are really data driven, and we do love data, we want data, is with D2C, it's great. So some really good metrics could be like, what's my customer acquisition cost? That's super easy to measure in D2C, super easy. And what's my LTV? What's the lifetime value of this customer? And starting to understand the levers to impact those numbers, especially for D2C, is very exciting. And the final point would be having the right data. So if you can afford it, investing in POS data from retail, or there's other data providers out there where you can then actually measure the sales lift and the return on sales that Michael talked about. So
great, thank you.
It's fun.
So another question for Michael. So putting on your marketing hat, what do you look for in investments when you're on the committee for Eat Beyond?
I think it boils down to three things for us, and first and foremost is the strength of the product proposition, and that includes uniqueness, obviously, versus what's out on the marketplace, and we look for new things that resonate and that will resonate with consumers. The second thing, obviously, is the people that are behind that and the experience they have, and you need a track record of people who know what they are doing cross-functionally, not just in one particular function, say marketing, manufacturing, sales, and having walked in the moccasins, so to speak, in terms of that track record of success, bringing that to a new venture. And lastly, in our case in particular, we are looking for some kind of metrics so that we're not dealing with just a startup situation. We're looking for some early stage success, whether that be online or in a limited geography, or with certain retail partners, and to see the proof that that proposition is in fact meaningful to consumers, and with scale can be a success for our investors.
Oh,
Oh,
Nicole.
I was saying that is all the time we have for today. So thank you, everyone. That was an insightful conversation, and looking forward to keeping in touch.
Well, thank you, everybody. So hopefully we're going to keep these conversations going. We are encouraging our audience to go into the lounge. Our speakers may or may not know this, but you have tables. So we encourage you to go sit at the table. And as our audience, before the next session, go and follow up questions. Ask Rand, ask Jessica, ask Michael, ask Nicole if you want to continue these conversations. So as we wrap up, I would like to thank our moderator, Nicole Marchand. Thank you. Thank you to our presenters, Jessica Malach, VP, Partnerships and Insights, Social Nature, Rand Goel, CEO and founder, Fresh City Farms, Michael Owen, Investment Committee Member, Eat Beyond Global Holdings. May you have continued success in expanding your businesses. Thank you to our attendees for your time today. Go to these companies' websites and learn more about these companies. If you have a lead for them, make sure you connect. And most of all, do your homework, do your own research. We have special thanks to Scott Exner from MLT Aikens, Brad Farquhar, CFO of Input Capital, Glenn Frazier and Leanne Magilla from MNP, Jim Harden from AVAC, Nicole Marchand from SnowCap, and our very own CSE personnel, Mark Francis, Anil Mall, and Grace Padota, who has been operating behind the scenes. Don't forget to check out CSE TV. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and our specialty shows, Tech Tuesday, every Tuesday, #Finance Aftermarket, along with Newly Listed and our very own Anil Mall, and the latest and greatest market update with our Anna Sarin and Bruce Campbell from Stone Castle every Friday. Thank you.